Bitcoin back?
Oh, in the short term. In the longer term, probably not. It's been way overdue for some form of bear market bounce. It's still working off the bear market oversold condition. But if you look at the major indicators I like to watch, NBT ratio, transactions, volatility, all these things that generally been synonymous with bottoms in the past, they show that the market's still way far away from a typical bottom you'd normally see.
Spencer, I presume you'd like to disagree.
Well, listen, Bitcoin never left. It's always been here. So is it back? It's definitely back. Are we ready to see a new all-time highs? Probably not yet. I still feel like there's a few more regulatory shoes to drop. But for now, I mean, the entrepreneurial activity and the institutional interest in the space has not ceded with the price.
Okay, so do you think it's hit bottom?
I think now's a very good time to buy. Is it the absolute bottom? I'm not sure. I mean, could be.
Mike, what do you think? I mean, has Bitcoin bottomed?
I think it's unlikely. It'd be nice if it is a bottom, but I think it's unlikely. Basically, if you look at the price, it's been trading between 3,100 and 4,100 since December, and it's basically doing the same thing it did last year. It's consolidating at lower levels, and I think it still needs to go lower levels. And this is where I want to differentiate the difference. Bitcoin, to me, is more like digital gold, and I think it's just a little expensive, but the rest of the space still has a lot more gleaning probably to do.
So, Spencer, what's been the entrepreneurial and investor interest through this slump?
Yeah, it hasn't slumped at all, really, in terms of entrepreneurial activity. I mean, the number of new pitches, I mean, we operate a venture capital fund that invests in both digital assets and the companies, and we see more and more companies coming in every day, and higher quality entrepreneurs as well. I mean, I think that behind the scenes, when we think about Bitcoin as an asset, we think about this vortex of a macro environment with rising debt levels at all-time high, money printing, this tension kind of between nationalism and globalism, and then this notion of jurisdictional competition. I think there's a strong case to be made that Bitcoin is the most compelling asset in the world right now.
Mike, where is the new demand going to come from?
Well, a lot of people are looking at institutions. I think institutions might look at Bitcoin as a proxy for digital gold. Those institutions that might buy gold might diversify portfolios with Bitcoin, but the rest of the space are technically cryptocurrencies, and they still trade like speculative digital assets. So that's still a little bit far away, but I think that's where you have to differentiate the difference. People are looking for institutions. Bitcoin's attractive. I mean, it's getting that way, but I still gold is a better, more attractive investment than Bitcoin at its current levels.
So, Spencer, where do you think the demand is going to come from?
I think there's three main buckets of demand going forward. I think the first is just the passage of time. Look, every day that Bitcoin is still alive, another day goes by, it goes from scary and unknown to trusted and proven. I think the second major bucket of demand is from central banks and institutions, which value it as a non-sovereign digital asset with absolute scarcity, so much in the way that Mike suggested, digital gold. And the third major bucket is tech demand. So this is demand for Bitcoin as programmable money. I mean, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is an open network. It's a platform that anybody can build on top of, and I think that's really compelling.
So, Mike, what are the other indicators you're watching, perhaps indicators that might show that a bear market was coming to an end?
Well, this is where I like a bit of a dichotomy with Spencer, because I agree with him a lot, but I look at it as a markets guy, not a technology guy. And you look at network value to transaction ratios, still very high. Actual transactions are near levels when Bitcoin was last around 2,000. You look at addresses used, they're basically at levels that are below the 2017 low, and that low was around 900. So these kind of indicators need to pick up, and technically, and in the past, they've been leading indicators. Then you look at things like volatility. Volatility is way too high. For a typical Bitcoin bottom, volatility needs to get probably to a new low. I'm looking for 15, maybe 20%. Currently, it's around 65%.
Now, I have a chart here in the Bloomberg Spencer that shows the bounce that we saw in the middle of 2017, also shows the lows where we're at right now, not so low necessarily historically. But what are some catalysts that could end a bear market or help the market fully recover, get to where you want it to be?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a tinderbox right now, and I think pretty much anything could set it off. I mean, on the one hand, I mean, to go back to my earlier comment, I do think that we need a little bit more time to pass between the bull market of 2017 and where we are today. But I think in the meantime, again, things are setting up really nicely here. It could be anything like over the weekend, Cambridge Associates, which is a top advisor to pensions and endowments, put out a report that said, hey, institutions, it's time to allocate to crypto. Now, that probably means less than 1% of your total portfolio, but in terms of pensions and endowments, that's a sizable amount.
Mike, what do we know about what JP Morgan is doing here with this coin and whether other banks will follow.
Well, I think what Spencer mentioned is a key reason Bitcoin jumped this weekend. What JP Morgan is doing is significant because, number one, it adds more supply to the space, but it's going in the space that really is what's the trend in the space, the trend towards stability and stable coins for a proper transaction, store value, or a currency. That's what I think JP Morgan's focusing on. It's potentially competition for Ripple, but overall, that's what's happening in the space. And if you look at the most successful coin so far in terms of market cap, it's Tether. Tether's the biggest stable coin. That's what the space needs. As Spencer needs, it needs time, probably needs volatility to decline, and it needs to become more stable.
Spencer, what are the coins to watch and the coins to stop watching?
Well, look, I think when you think about something like JP Morgan's coin, this is an intranet. I think what you want to focus on is internets, so the open networks that anybody can build on top of. Those are things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. I really wouldn't suggest that people go much further down the spectrum than those two.
To where?
BTC and ETH. That's it.
All right. So it's just two.
Those are the main that I would focus on for most
Not
people
Ripple.
right now. Maybe down the line.